Hi, and welcome to Crowdfunding with Heart. My name is Kathy Sipple, and I am founder at the CoThrive Community, which is the host of this project. Today we're going to talk about how crowdfunding is changing the game for people who have projects that they are passionate about. So hopefully that is you, or maybe you know somebody who could use this type of information and you'll be able to pass it along. A little bit about me. Some of you know me from various other places. I started my business, my social media coach, in early 2009, just really excited by the opportunities that online marketing affords small businesses and nonprofits, kind of just non-traditional market, close to it. Of course, your time isn't free, but I try to help people focus their time out of it. Shortly after that, I started something called 219 Green Connect, and a couple of you on the call might really know me from that. It was my effort to connect the green dots here in Northwest Indiana, or the 219 area code where I live. I was very passionate about the environment, and so I put a special shout out to my Green Drinks and 219 Green Connect audience to invite them. Certainly a lot of these things could be used for environmental projects. I'm going to show you a couple of those examples a little bit further in the program. And then most recently, I have launched CoThrive. Again, that's the sponsor of this program, and I'll tell you a little bit more about CoThrive once we get to the conclusion. We do have a lot to cover, so we're going to get into it. Okay, let's see. Slides are hung up just a tad. Bear with me. Okay. Blackout screen. Are you guys seeing a black screen as well? That's kind of bizarre.
I'm not seeing that. I'm actually seeing the Green Connect CoThrive and my social media coach page.
Okay. All right. That's just never happened before, that my screen is now black. So very odd, and I couldn't advance it. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to hope that the slides catch up, but I really don't want to keep us held up. So let me just say that, okay, I've got it back again, that I wanted to give you a little bit of background about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is kind of new. It was, oh dear, I went all the way to the last slide. Okay, just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, it just skipped me all the way to the end. I think I hit advance too many times. I was panicking at the black screen. Hang on, guys. Sorry about this. A little goofy.
I say we just do it in reverse.
That's what I love about this CoThrive audience is, you guys roll with me. You know that these things happen. Erik especially, I know you do a lot of work with the National Speakers Association. They probably have special training for when your slides go astray. Mm-hmm. All right, well, this is kind of goofy. I'm getting a little, your pages become unresponsive thing. So my apologies. Let me just kind of regroup here for 1 second. Okay. Back to it. All right, so I just want to give a little background about the history of crowdfunding. The word, as far as anybody can tell, was coined in 2006, but the concept actually really predates even the internet. The Statue of Liberty, I thought this was a pretty cool thing that I found out when I was doing some research for, putting slides and information together for this workshop. It was actually crowdfunded, not the statue itself, but the pedestal. France gifted the Statue of Liberty to us, and then America needed, a big granite slab to kind of to use as a pedestal for the Statue of Liberty, and they actually crowdfunded it. They put an ad out in the paper, and lots of different individual donors gifted very small amounts, and to what would equal, I believe, like $6 million in today's dollars, but it was like $250,000 in those dollars. So anyway, for the online thing that we start to think of as crowdfunding, that kind of gained traction when Artist Share launched in 2003. I don't have a lot of direct experience with that, but that's the one that they kind of credit as being the leader. So it is a game changer. There's an article here recently that came out in the New York Times. The headline is, "Tired of waiting for U.S. to act, states pass crowdfunding laws and rules." and it says in 2012, President Obama signed a law that he called a potential game changer for entrepreneurs seeking financing to start or expand a business. So for those of you that don't know what crowdfunding is, basically it's taking part in an online fundraising campaign where one person acts as the project leader and they put forth their idea, and then they open it up to different individual backers who can fund their offering. And so for many, many years, there were rules and regulations from the Securities and Exchange Commission that kind of prevented regular people that weren't high-worth individuals from participating in this. They kind of considered it almost like an IPO. So I just want to say I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not an attorney, so laws on crowdfunding could change. So be sure that you go and kind of research what the laws might be in your local area. But if you stick with one of the main crowdfunding platforms, I think they're going to all do a pretty good job of walking you through what the considerations are for their platforms. Okay, so I just want to say that it is a relatively new thing that the law and just systems available online are now allowing us to do. So with that, I think it just creates a lot of interesting opportunities. The first exposure that I had to it was actually with a client who had hired me to do their website, and they have a documentary film. People that know me from 219 Green Connect or Green Drinks here locally in Northwest Indiana might know about this movie. It's a really special geographic area that we've got that this documentary film team wanted to really highlight and kind of build awareness about conservation efforts for it. So they've gone on to win many, many different awards for their film, but it all started with a crowdfunding campaign. And you might not be able to see this on screen, but they did meet their goal. They got over $6,000 that they raised to help fund the trailer, which then went on to fund the whole full-featured film, which is now available on DVD, and it's available, it's shown on a lot of public TV stations throughout the country. So anyway, I gave to that campaign, and it was just so exciting because it's a movie that I would have loved to have purchased anyway, but the way I did it with this is that I gave my contribution, and instead of just getting the DVD, they actually listed my name and/or I think 219 Green Connect in the film's credits. So that's really a thrill when I turn on my local PBS station and I can still see this movie today, or pop in the DVD today, and I see my own name there. So just for a split second on screen, there I was, but that was, I think, a really effective way for them to use crowdfunding and get their work done. Not long after that, I got another opportunity to work with a local author. Randy Jamrock is in Highland, Indiana, and he came to me asking me to build a website for him. And when I looked at what he wanted to do, I just thought, oh man, I could do a website, but that's not really going to do what you want to do. It's not going to raise money to help you print your book. He wrote a book called Permaculture Solutions to Climate Change, and his idea was to fund the book enough to get it pre-printed and then make free copies available to different organizations, environmental organizations or gardening organizations who are interested in permaculture solutions to climate change. So he funded that in just 3 weeks. He had a full week left. He didn't have a terribly large goal. He had $2,500. And again, you can go on my site, 219greenconnect.com/permaculture, and kind of see all the details about that. By the way, everybody will get the slides that I'm showing as well as the video, which also will include the links, so you can kind of drill down and get more information about each. But anyway, that was really, really exciting. Randy came to me. He didn't know about crowdfunding at the time, and just us fusing our ideas together, it was really, really satisfying to, he said, take a permaculture approach to his marketing and suggest a solution that really worked for him. So instead of giving him the website that he wanted, we went where people were already gathered. In this case, we used the platform We the Trees, which is a crowdfunding campaign that specifically, attracts environmental type projects. So that was a really good place for him to be. So why is CoThrive talking about this? Well, CoThrive is kind of an innovation lab and a social connecting lab. We, as members and interested other members of the party, or excuse me, the public that we hope to attract to our CoThrive party, I think that's what I meant to say, we want to explore these new tools and just put our eyes and ears together, figure out how these can best be used to get the things done that previously were a little bit more challenging to get done, when you had to be able to raise big money in order to get out there. So if you stick around after meeting the panelists, we're going to tell you about a couple of tools that are available for free that will help, and I can't say it'll guarantee your crowdfunding success, but it'll definitely get you off on the right foot. So that'll be at the end. We're also going to take the hour after the panel is finished to just kind of talk through some of your ideas or answer any lingering questions. But in the following hour, we're going to be meeting some community members who are working on their own projects. So without further ado, I want to introduce the first panelist. His name is Erik Lehmann, and his project is called the Gamechanger Movement, rePURPOSE Your HEARTdrive. And Erik, boy, I could probably spend several hours just talking about Erik and all of his accomplishments, but I'll just give you a couple of the highlights. When Erik was still a teenager, he actually had the experience of living in a homeless shelter for 50 days. We don't need to go into the whole background right now of how that happened or why that happened, but he made a miraculous journey from going, from that type of situation to going through Cornell University, where he now lives in Ithaca, New York, and transitioned into a graduate program. In the graduate program, he actually founded the Cornell Coalition for the Homeless. So always one to kind of be looking back at where he's come from and devising solutions that are going to help others. That seems to be just at the core of who Erik is. So now Erik is a father, and he is concerned about kids getting a little too entrenched with video games, spending time in front of screens, and particularly violent video games. And so he has come up with this campaign that I'm going to let him talk about. To get to his campaign, I did a little shortened link, so you can go check that out after the fact, or I might pop over to it once we get Erik on the line here. But Erik, can you just tell us a little bit about your campaign, the idea, the rewards, maybe some things that have come up for you since you launched the campaign?
Well, I now thanks for that great introduction and just being who you are in the world. I love the vision of CoThrive, and I'm so honored to be a part of its new and essential energy. So I guess what I'm now considering this campaign sort of a practice campaign, because the lessons I'm learning along the way are so valuable and will help me immensely as I learn into this realm. But I mean, I feel like to back up and to just talk about the true huge opportunity like crowdfunding in general provides, the what Seth Godin would call people who want to make a ruckus in the world. And I feel like one of the my professional history is from kind of corporate sales. I was in the pharmaceutical industry. I did all these things that were kind of mainstream. Like, this is how people made money. And then in my spare time is when I was able to pay forward all of the generosity I received when I was going through that situation that you described earlier. I mean, going from living in a homeless shelter to Cornell University to buying a house and paying it off, all these other things. There's there's kind of this like mainstream path, but then when I learned about crowdfunding, I was like, wow, like here's an opportunity to be about something that is not necessarily what the corporate realm would get behind. And specifically, this particular movement challenges most corporate giving and foundations, because it's doing something that's never been done before. I mean, what we want to do is we want to inspire youth to trade in violent video games that we then smash or cut into pieces and transform into mosaic art or tables or furniture or signs or eventually even dresses that we're going to challenge performing artists to wear while they're on tour in order to grow visibility for what we consider the best use of violent video game raw materials. So that being said, crowdfunding is such a clear opportunity and like the perfect home for what this movement is all about, because it's what I learned trying to do it in a mainstream way is there are so many companies that make some of their money based on their interactions with the video gaming industry. So it would be hard pressed for the corporate world to get behind something that's this radical. And I didn't know it was that radical when I first started it, but it turns out that it is. So and so when I learned that a few companies they wanted to support the vision, but they didn't want to be known for supporting the vision, you know, I mean, and all that I learned on sponsorship said, you know, one of the best ways to solicit funds is to incorporate a company's name in what you're doing, and that's how you grow visibility and create partnerships that are meaningful. But that being said, like this is a grassroots opportunity, and my true belief is that the parents who have already chosen to make sure that violent video games aren't in their households are going to be the first to act, the first funders of this vision, because they want to learn how to have the conversations with their kids' friends' parents who may or may not have already made that decision. So so I feel like crowdfunding presents this amazing opportunity to reach the tribe that is ready and willing to hear and support this message. And so that's where why I decided to go in, you know, and seek out crowdfunding as one of the ways to raise money for the Gamechanger movement. But you know, the lessons learned along the way is, I mean, there's so many different resources on crowdfunding, and because one of the things that it does is that it democratizes the way business gets done. So business used to get done, other than I guess the Statue of Liberty and a few other projects, by large companies controlled by a small group of people, and that, you know, decisions were made by the few rather than the many. So what I love about crowdfunding is we can test the concept. We can figure out what the world wants without investing all the resources in advance. So you can find out if the world is ready for the Gamechanger movement by launching a crowdfunding campaign. And you know, the good thing is that you can tweak it along the way, and you can hear direct response from your market in real time. So you know, when I first launched the campaign about 37 days ago, I heard immediate feedback, and the first round of feedback was really interesting, which was, Erik, this is what you need to do, you know, and a lot of people said, you know, they just gave me sort of unsolicited advice, and it was well received. Yet the miracle that showed up was about a few weeks later when a friend of mine said, here's what I think could help, and I'll help you. So in a way, that's why I call this sort of the practice campaign, is because we're at, you know, past the halfway point, and I feel as though the biggest lesson I can, you know, take in the, you know, from this experience is to parse out my project into smaller, more reasonable chunks. You know, I mean, I'm a 100,000 foot thinker, and that doesn't entirely translate well to crowdfunding campaigns that want to just share one vision, create one simple action, and a list of perks, and then move on. So I've created this list of perks that continues to grow, and I'm excited about that. And yet some of the perks may warrant their own campaign. So for instance, I created this invention called Collaborator line of toys. And I mean, these are toys that combine Legos, Lincoln Logs, Tinker Toys, and Erector sets. And many have told me that that is valid enough as a campaign in and of itself. And it doesn't necessarily need to be embedded in the Gamechanger movement. And that's a great thing to learn. So
I just want to say I think that's so great that you're so humble and so malleable that instead of seeing this as, hey, I may not hit my goal, as really receiving the gift of information that this experience has given you so far. And I think you've hit the nail on that. You've got a lot going on here. I mean, you're helping youth transform, the video game discs into art, which, I mean, that's probably a whole thing right there. I mean, you've got this cool shirt on that you said somebody designed for you that's, about the heart and the, I mean, yeah, to me this does kind of seem like it could very easily be 4 or 5 different campaigns, but it's very rich and it's very, very interesting.
Well, I mean, and thanks for saying that, because I feel like, and it will be 4 or 5 campaigns, and I feel like the lesson learned from the get-go is that maybe launching a whole movement on, through an Indiegogo campaign is not necessarily the right strategy. However, and so like I'm about to revise the video and try in essence to relaunch the campaign with less than 30 days to go. And basically the video will be way more concise. It'll be under 2 minutes, and which is one of the first pieces of unsolicited advice that came in, or solicited. I mean, a lot of my friends are sensitive, and I'm learning that the world's attention span is 2 minutes or under, and there was part of perhaps my ego that said, oh no, well, like, this is too important to consolidate into 2 minutes, like this needs 5 minutes, and perhaps like there's a way for me to just get more laser focused, even though I think most of my my speaking is in TED Talk or larger format. So I guess the good news is that I may do a break-off campaign that will be assisted by a friend of mine who is well-versed in Vine technology, or the Vine platform, which creates 6-second videos. So, I mean, here the crowdfunding gurus are saying 2 minutes or less, and then here's this new platform that says 6 seconds or less. And that's pretty amazing. So, I feel like that's the other part of the Gamechanger movement that that is a learning organic process as well, is that when we first launched this movement, we wanted to get kids off of the game console in general. And then the more learning I did around games, the more powerful I thought it was as a true learning platform. I wanted to shift the idea of the content that the games basically are providing and teaching us, because I mean, kids are learning so much about which gun to choose in Grand Theft Auto. Imagine they learned how to figure out which knot to tie for sailing. So one of my colleagues and I are creating an alternative gaming platform that will raise the visibility of pro-social games, and we may use sailing as the first exemplar of this new gaming platform. And so I mean, yes, I mean the Gamechanger movement is is not just a single a one-trick pony, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think, again, that's a really great idea. And, one thing I noticed, too, is just the reward levels. I mean, they go from, like, $10 to, I think, $10,000, so it's a really, really big range. And the $10 level, I think it was, kind of targeted to parents only.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just from a marketing standpoint, what I would really encourage you to do if we were, taking this into a CoThrive Jam session and kind of trying to work out the details is look at who is my target market, and then maybe designing some rewards that you thought would be particularly interesting for that market, and kind of think it through within that niche. But anyway, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, though. You've got some real strengths here. I mean, you've got social capital. I know you've got 5,000 Facebook friends. You said you've got an email list of how many? 10,000 or something?
I don't have that many in email, but I did one of these. I don't know if you've ever heard of Thunderclap, but through networking, when this campaign is ready to really disseminate, which I feel is several days away, with a new video and a refocused language around it. I have friends who have lists that are hundreds of thousands long, and so I mean, and on Friday I'm going to be going on an iHeart Radio or on a web radio broadcast that's going to reach at least 9,000, and then a few weeks later it's going to go to iHeart Radio, which has probably hundreds of thousands of listeners. So I mean, there's lots of ways to kind of amplify the resonance of this campaign, and I feel like that's the other lesson learned, is that if I had it all to do over again, and I do in a way that, like, I'm gonna do other campaigns with all the learnings from this one, is I would do most of my fundraising in advance, so that when I hit the launch button, I would have at least 30% funded, 30% of the goal funded by commitments that people made in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another piece of advice that people would, who are considering using this platform as a way of raising their funds might consider. So the pre-sales is a really amazing. I don't want to say oversight, but I do want to say that if I spent more time calling people and connecting, which is what I love about CoThrive, I feel this would have launched better. And then what they say is once something is 30% funded, it does something really magical with the search engines on each platform. So you just kind of make movement happen when you do a lot of work in advance. So I'm going to take the next, 25 days to pre-sell my next campaign, so that when I hit the launch button, there will already be 30% of my goal hitting, day 1 or 2 of the campaign.
Great. Well, I think you brought up a lot of important points. I just kind of like to recap is, these platforms are very, very helpful. They're useful, and they allow us the technology to get the thing done, but you still need to have some skills in just, the communication area, kind of fine-tuning your message, also having the social network and the people who care and the buy-in. And so, you were, I think, very fortunate to have a lot of those pieces. And then, you're kind of rolling with it. You're making things happen and making changes happen as you go. Another consideration I think some people want to probably consider when they choose a platform and they choose the type of funding option is that some sites will allow you to keep whatever you raise, regardless of whether or not you hit your goal. However, they usually apply a heftier fee. So there is a fee, for Kickstarter, for Indiegogo, or whoever, to host your crowdfunding campaign. They take a certain portion, and the portion is higher generally if you don't hit your goal. So what that does is it encourages you to really think of a realistic goal, because they want campaigns to be successful. But I do consider your efforts to be a success for all the reasons that you've already said. You've gotten buy-in, you've gotten the tribe kind of activated, and you've got ideas for where you can go with it for your next venture, whatever that looks like. And I want to thank you for being part of this call today, and I want to thank you for what I know you're going to be contributing as we go forth and share more in CoThrive.
Thank you so much for presenting this platform.
Yeah, and do we have Melissa on the line? Melissa, are you here with us yet? Okay, we may need to come back to Melissa. She did tell me she had a sick kid, so I'm gonna save that for her, and we'll come back and hopefully she'll be able to join us live. I'm going to go ahead and introduce another CoThrive member, Stephen Dynako. He is the author of the upcoming book, The Self-Aware Lover, and he also has a previous title that he published himself, and this is the first book that he's looking at doing a crowdfunding campaign for. So I included a link where you can find out more about Stephen and more about the book. You can opt in to find out when his campaign is live. Right now we're in the strategy planning session. So Stephen, can you say a little bit about where you are in the planning stages right now?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Thanks for asking me to be part of this. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, so I am sort of on the cusp of the putting together the plan for my campaign. Essentially, like the book itself has been written, as Kathy mentioned. I've self-published previously through the Amazon platform, and that's what I expect to do with this particular title as well. And really, I guess what I need to do a little bit is talk about like the topic of the book just briefly. And the book is titled The Self-Aware Lover. Essentially, the idea or the essence of it is that to help people to get in touch with how they express love, and this is more than just in a romantic way. So this is expressions of love in, not only relationship, but love of self, love of society, love for community, and love for a higher power. And how do we, as individuals, get in touch with all those aspects of ourselves so that we can put ourselves out to the world as a more, loving, a more life-affirming person. And I would also say it plays vocationally too, right? So part of what I talk about in the book is self-loving with respect to a call to one's life's purpose. And that could be work, a vocation. It could be through some charitable contribution, what have you. So that's sort of in a nutshell what the book is about. And I've essentially have gone through the writing process of it. I'm about to go through the setup production process. So my campaign is really about, where does the message go from here? So I regard the book as a foundation for a greater message that I want to put out to the world about what it means to be a self-aware lover. So the book is the kind of the jumping off point, and then there are other activities that I'm looking to fund to support the message of the book. So for instance, I would love to do workshops on the topic, and those workshops could be delivered to various audiences. So if for instance, there might be a workshop focused on what a self-aware lover means within an intimate relationship. There might be a workshop around what it means to be a self-aware lover with respect to one's vocational life and one's work. So there are, and then some other things that I'm looking to do as well are perhaps some ancillary products like affirmation cards to support the message of the book, journals, that have quotes from the book included within them as prompts to do journaling. So again, the book is really a jumping off point for getting the message that I want to bring, that I feel led to bring out into the world. So that's where the crowdfunding piece of this comes in, is to support the pursuit of those additional activities. And as I had mentioned, I'm on the cusp of actually getting the plan together to support that. So that's where I am currently.
Yeah, and since you were actually one of the founding CoThrive members, you and I have been talking about this for a little while now. And I have to say, I was really enthusiastic when Stephen asked me to read a preliminary draft, and I just got very excited by this. I thought this was a really wonderful book where the message had to be out there in the world, and so, my mind kind of went to crowdfunding. I know it's I don't want to say it's easy to just launch a book and let it go. It's definitely not easy, but once you've put all that work into creating the book, I think it's tempting to think that, well, it will just happen, kind of like the other author that I helped with the permaculture solutions to climate change. He just thought if I built him a website, the book would, somehow sell. And, that's just not the way it is today. Erik mentioned before about how people are just, there's a little bit of an attention deficit. You really need to make it very, very clear what you're doing, what is the reward. But I think books are an interesting vehicle because you've got a certain amount of content that you can give away for free, maybe as one of your, well, not exactly free. You could say like at a $5 level or something, you could get the ebook, for instance, or you could just, even for free, give away chapter 1, or some kind of something that has to do with the book. So because it's your content, you can parse it up a little bit in an interesting way. If you wanted to, maybe include donors' names in the, in the ebook version, that's something that you can do relatively easily, just with administrative cost of you typing in the names and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of different reward ideas, and I think your idea that you just shared about packaging maybe a certain number of books, and if you were to speak before a group or a church or a book club, something like that, you could do an author, appearance in book signing as well. So those are a lot of different ideas that you could go to for the reward levels. And then another option that you and I found when we were looking at appropriate crowdfunding platforms was something called PubSlush. And I'm wondering, have you decided on the platform yet? I put a question mark on it because I wasn't sure, quite what you decided, or if you had looked into that.
Yeah. And that one it's the one I'm leaning towards. So essentially, the way PubSlush works is that it is focused on supporting authors. So it's a focused platform for that purpose alone. And essentially, and I know this is not the self-publishing webinar, but just to talk a little bit about some of the specifics, PubSlush essentially allows you to keep what you raise as long as you raise over $500. So it's a lower bar. They do have an assist program that helps with some other activities around promoting the book. And the other thing they also do is they donate one children's book for every to a child in need for every book that's sold through their platform. So it's kind of interesting. And then what they also do is they keep your information live in the sense that once you've published, they keep your page up with a link to buying the book. So there's sort of there's like a second phase that they can support once the crowdfunding phase is over. So I kind of like that about them. So that's why I'm leaning towards PubSlush.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's neat. So that's kind of, and then Indiegogo was the other one I was looking at, but I like the fact that PubSlush actually is tailored specifically towards authors, and that the type of support it provides is more than just the crowdfunding piece. There is a support for continued promotion.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing all around here on the slides. I was trying to find out if Melissa had joined us, and oh man, I'm just having all manner of pop-ups today. In any case, I don't think Melissa is here. I can certainly address hers, or Xander, are you with us? I was trying to find out. Yeah, Xander is with us, so I'm going to take you off of mute, Xander. And if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your project that we'll be kicking off this fall. Xander, are you with me? Xander, you've got the mic. Can you hear me? Okay, I know he's here and he's unmuted, but he may need to get his mic set up. All right. Always the challenge when you've got multiple panelists. I'm going to go ahead and just talk very quickly about some tools as we hopefully gather Xander and Melissa to be here with us and share about their campaign. Xander, are you with me?
Does that work better?
That works. Yeah. Let me bounce back to your slide. Yeah, so tell us a little bit, first of all. You've got kind of a tool sharing library for artists. Just give us the background about, what is the idea behind Indy Art Media Co-op, and, what your planning is right now. You're going to be launching, what, in the next month?
Yes, we'll be launching our crowdsource in the next month. First off, just glad to be here with you all and thankful for the CoThrive space and Kathy Sipple. Always a pleasure. Glad to be having this conversation at a very opportune time, and glad to be here with a bunch of other talented, brilliant folks. So just a quick hello to everyone. I am Xander. I'm from Indianapolis. I've been working with the Indy Art Media Cooperative, which we started up about 2 years ago with a basic mission to distribute creative content to promote social awareness, education, and action. The basic idea being, let's amplify the voices that are least heard. At the beginning of this last year, we decided that the best way to really start promoting sharing in collaboration was with a very physical project. We had been doing different kinds of workshops around social networks, Twitter and Facebook, and been teaching people the principles of, sharing reciprocally and, share love to a certain degree. We talked about quite a bit, but we found it a little bit hard to express the immaterial, and so we decided to go after a project that was much more hands-on and literally was handing people tools and literally sharing physical objects as really a starting point to teach Indianapolis how asset sharing and cooperative ownership could really amp up the work and provide more resources to a lot of people by focusing resources. And so we are creating a media tool lending library that would have an inventory of media production and event equipment broadly broken down into 3 categories: storytelling tools like cameras, video recorders, audio recorders like Zooms, tripods, flashes, the accessories for these kind of equipment. DSLRs are what we're looking at. Then event production equipment like projectors, PAs, mic stands, mics, anything you need to do to present, a movie or a low-level music event. And then thirdly, giving people canopies and tables and chairs and other festival or fair-going equipment. We probably will come up with a better category name for that one, but basic ideas, tools to help you take your show on the road and take it to fairs and festivals. And so we are working to release our Kickstarter, or Indiegogo is the platform we're looking at, on September 26th. The last Saturday in September, we're having a big multimedia extravaganza benefit show, 4 bands, 3 different movie producers are exhibiting their short films. One we're really excited about just jumped on will be debuting a video. They're amateur hour films. They do a YouTube channel on how to do your own films, how to make props, how to do a lot of things. They're a really great resource. You can find them amateur hour films or amateur hour productions. Yep, the multimedia explosion. Gotta upload our flyer here. We just got a really nice one. And so, yeah, we are looking to raise roughly $20,000 for the crowdsourcing campaign in order to, we haven't found the very low end of like what would be reasonable, the least amount of tools we could have to still make memberships. The model we're looking at is a yearly membership fee, and if you're a member, you'd be able to check out these tools at $1 per week just to emphasize the value of the tools. But again, yeah, the idea is amplifying the voices, the least heard voices in Indianapolis by giving everyone access to the tools of cultural production as a way to boost up the marginalized communities in our city. There's a lot of connectivity issues in Indianapolis. It's one of the most spread out cities in the country. I think it's like 8th biggest area-wise, but a little less than 1 million people. And so because of a lack of a good public transportation system, and it's a car town, we're kind of a mini Detroit. We suffered the collapse of the auto industry and have moved largely into service work. And unfortunately, in Indiana, there's not a single unionized hotel and very few unionized shops
Xander, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are pretty limited on time. I know you're very knowledgeable about many different topics, but I need to kind of keep it a little focused on crowdfunding for now. What I'm going to say, if it's okay, is to kind of look at it from a marketing lens. It sounds to me, since you're trying to serve people who are local and also transportation challenged, then you would need to do a little bit of defining your target market and work on building your social capital among that audience. Think about the ideas of how to construct a campaign for people who are local, who are going to be the artist, and maybe a separate sub-campaign to take the sponsorship idea that Erik mentioned. Whose best interest is it in to help those people that you're trying to serve. So again, I hate to cut you short. We've got just so many fascinating members that have big ideas, and sometimes they're just a little hard to get your head all the way around. But I encourage you to take a look at Xander's website, and also obviously become a member of CoThrive, and you can meet up and get to speak with people like Xander frequently. Okay, I saw Melissa joined us, so I am going to scoot back to her slide now. And Melissa, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I know you had some challenges today as well, but you just had a really exciting announcement that you started a Kickstarter and already had it funded within how many days?
I launched Friday afternoon, and it was fully funded by Monday morning.
So that's got to be a pretty darn good record.
It was, it was a low goal, but that was kind of on purpose, because I looked at, all right, what was the minimum I need to make something happen? And so I made sure that I designed the project to be very scalable. So I certainly would love to make 4 times my goal, and then the project will just be bigger and better. But I, just like last time I did this, I kind of set a goal that would allow me to get the minimum done and know that I could make that goal. So.
Well, that's great. So just to tell people a little bit about your process, I thought this was very cool. We happen to be connected, on Facebook, and I also have liked your artist, business page. But you were doing something through Instagram, right? It was the 100 days, or what was that exactly?
Yeah, there's an artist who, I think there's several of these type of projects going on, but I followed a particular artist that's put together something called the 100 Days Project, and anyone who wanted to was invited to participate. You chose a theme, and every day for 100 days you did something creative based on that theme and uploaded it to Instagram. And I had been working with just the idea of playing card images in some of my personal work for a while, so I said, I'll do 100 days of playing cards. So every day for 100 days I did a sketch of a playing card or a playing card back, or something that was playing card themed, but also with the birds and animals and insects and things that I like to draw in my own work. So it was kind of just working through and refining those ideas for my own work. And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I know you just joined us, but I wanted to kind of bridge the ideas that Erik had put out. He said, he's running a campaign right now, but he's kind of getting the feedback now while his campaign is live that you actually got during those 100 days, because I think you put out a trial balloon of an idea. You just said, I'm considering maybe making these into playing cards, right? Didn't you say you kind of got feedback as you were going?
It was, I always knew that I was going to do some art prints based on the images, but really it came from people who are my supporters and clients and fans started asking me, well, are you doing a real deck of cards? When are you doing a deck of cards? I want a deck of cards. And so it sort of seemed obvious that there was interest out there for this. So kind of the creative end of things came before the actual project. So it was kind of one thing led to another, and Kickstarter was just a logical way for me to scrape up the capital to turn this into a deck of cards. And I knew that the market existed because it was something that people had kind of brought to me as an idea.
Great. Well, I really thank you for doing that, and congratulations for making your goal so very quickly. But, so I think there are a lot of decisions that go into what makes a good campaign, and not hitting your total doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't get anything out of your campaign. It's just what do you absolutely need out of it. If you have set up your funding where you can only, keep the rewards, keep the amount raised if you hit your goal, obviously that's a key decision. Melissa, you obviously made your goal. Do you recall what was the percentage that Kickstarter will take from your amount?
They take a flat 5%, and then there's also a credit card processing fee that's assessed through their third-party credit card processing, and that varies from 3 to 5%, I think, depending on how people pay. So just to be conservative, you kind of have to budget 10% off the top.
Okay. And so this is your second campaign, correct? Didn't you do a Kickstarter campaign before? And how did this one compare to the other?
This one went much faster. I had a higher goal on the first one, a little bit higher goal. This one happened a lot faster, and I think it's because we're 2 years down the road from the last one I did. I have a much bigger online network now than I did when I did the first one. And also, I think it just has to do with the product. I've gotten a lot of backers on Kickstarter who seem to be playing card collectors, and they just kind of, comb Kickstarter for any kind of art deck that people are doing, because I have a lot of people that, I have no idea who they are, who, when I look at their backer profiles on Kickstarter, they've bought every single deck of cards that's out there. So
interesting. Okay. Well, so I think that's just a really cool way for an artist to approach it, is not to be so attached to the medium, but just find a way to get your art paid for and get your art, out there. So again, kudos to you.
Well, I had a sort of also an ulterior motive in doing this, which is I've structured it so I'm going to have a lot of decks left over, I hope. This is going to serve as a self-promotional piece for me to send to art directors and illustration agents and so forth. As opposed to just sending an art director a postcard or a business card, I'll have this finished product to kind of show not just my work, but that I've thought through how my work can be applied to products, because I am right now really trying to get an illustration career going and get my work out there. So this will be a great little calling card for me to leave with people I want to work with.
Absolutely, and I think, again, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. You got to do a spreadsheet, kind of figure out what do you want to get out of it, price your product accordingly, and if you funded some other decks that you can do for giveaways, that's great. Or you could even sell those decks or whatever. There are many different ways you can go.
But you have to do your homework and know your costs ahead of time, absolutely. So
exactly. And so I just want to move ahead to some tools that you can use, obviously, besides a spreadsheet where you've got to capture all those costs. If you're printing something, if you've got hard cost, that all has to go into it. If you're like Xander and you've got tools, that all goes into it. The tools that I'm talking about right now, this is something I found actually when I was doing the promotion for this workshop. The CEO from a company called Crowdster reached out to me and offered me a few free things that I could give to people who showed up on the webinar today. What Crowdster does is basically they offer support for people who are doing crowdfunding campaigns. And, I am connected to a couple different consultants on LinkedIn, and I'm sure they're very good, but they're also pretty darn expensive. And, when you're trying to raise money, it's pretty rare for somebody to have all kinds of money to plunk down and get this help. So I can't say that I've tried it personally, but I did like what I saw. It seemed, pretty sensible. Basically, they acknowledge that for a campaign to be successful, you need to have a crowd. You need to have a certain critical mass in order to get your message out to people. PR and distribution, this is particularly important if you don't have the crowd. You've got to kind of hit up journalists maybe that are particularly interested in your area, that the project would fall into. And then social capital gauge. That's not just your list, but it's how far does your social reach go and the social reach of your network. So that was pretty interesting. They've got a number of different tools that you can purchase a la carte. I think if you buy one of these tools alone, it's like $30, $40, which isn't bad. But if you were to buy all of them at that rate, it would kind of add up. At I think it's $97, you get all 5 different services that they offer for one pretty low price. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I'm going to send out a free press release template that they had provided to us. That'll come with the webinar video, so everybody on the call will get that. You'll also get the slides from today's workshop, and then you're also going to get the links, for everything that we've talked about here today. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. What I wanted to do today was just, really show you some ideas of how a campaign could work and the way that we would really hash out getting it done for you. I mean, I'm certainly available to work with people one-on-one, but again, I'm trying to serve people who may not have the money to hire me as a consultant. That's kind of why I developed CoThrive, is I want it to be a place where I can come, quite frankly, and learn as well. I'm not expert at crowdfunding, although I've had 2 clients that successfully funded their programs, and kind of another one I did that wasn't on a crowdfunding platform, but on an event, sign-up platform, very similar. We want to explore innovation, collaboration, co-creation. This is just what we do in CoThrive. So one cool idea that we actually explored between Erik and Stephen, and that's kind of how we came up with the name of this workshop, was Crowdfunding with Heart. Stephen's book is about, loving yourself, and Erik's is about repurposing your HEARTdrive. So they kind of had that heart and love thing in common. I suggested, hey, Stephen, since you're a little light on your database, what about, maybe making your first chapter available as a download for Erik's program, since he's got 5,000 on his list or more. How can we kind of interweave one another's programs and projects so that we become more mutually supportive? And by being a beacon for the same audience, if we're doing creative activities that kind of attract a similar audience, we can actually mimic what's called in agriculture the 3 sisters, and it's kind of shown in the logo, the CoThrive logo. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's the concept of companion planting. Native Americans have this tradition called 3 sisters, where they plant corn, beans, and squash all in the same spot, and they actually grow better together than they would separately in a monoculture. Everybody kind of doing their own thing, growing their own crop, because the corn provides the stalk, the support for the beans that need that support for their growth. The beans fix nitrogen from the air that then gives that to the other 2 plants to survive, and then the squash kind of acts as a natural mulch, whatever, But anyway, that's kind of the whole idea behind CoThrive, is how can we intermingle our projects and be mutually supportive. So if that sounds like something that would be of interest, I'd love for you to come back and join us for another webinar. We're going to be doing these periodically for free. Our next one, please save the date, is September 17th. You can get there right now. The registration link is now live. You can go to bit.ly/CoThriveWriter. We'll have more information up on our website too. This was just announced today, so it's not up just yet. You're on our mailing list now if you signed up for this, so you'll watch out for email as well, and you'll get a chance to sign up. But if you're not yet a member, I'd really like to welcome you to join the CoThrive community. It's priced as affordably as I could possibly make it, kind of on par with a gym membership, if you will, and it's free for 30 days. If you don't have any idea what CoThrive's about after listening to this webinar, or you're not sure if it's right for you, I really, no strings attached, would like you to try it out for 30 days for free, and just try it. Just see what you can get out of it. What it includes beyond these workshops, these webinars, is actually co-working time where we spend digging into one another's projects, being sounding boards for one another, and just kind of helping one another to support. So there are also a limited number of work and barter scholarships available. If $30 a month is not manageable for you, there are all kinds of things that need to be done in the community, administrative things and other. We can certainly get creative. It has to be something we actually need, you know, but I want interested, passionate people who are intelligent and creative to be a part of the community, and I will definitely work with you to make that happen. So anyway, this is the end of the official webinar, but I am going to be around, and I think Stephen is still with me. Melissa, I know you have a sick child. You may or may not be able to stay with us, but I just want to open it up to questions about crowdfunding, or about whatever it is you might need. So let me check the question area. For those of you that are not familiar with GoToMeeting, you can type your question into the chat area or the question area, and I would be happy to unmute you as well. So just let me know if you've got something. Okay, we do have a few. Let's see. Nancy had to leave. Okay, no real questions, but she said thank you, very useful. Joy Marburger also said very useful. Elaine, you might not have heard me, but yes, we'll be sending the slides and the video to everybody who registered. So I don't think I've got any questions, but we didn't specifically open it up before that. We've still got quite a few people here. So, oh, Joy's got a question. Can crowdfunding be used to develop citizen science projects? I would imagine so. Can I unmute you, Joy? And let's just talk that through if that's okay. Let me find you on here. Okay, we actually have a pretty long list today. That's exciting. Let me go ahead. Okay, Joy, do you have audio? Oh, okay. I don't know. She just muted herself again. Okay. Let me come back to that. I'd love to kind of drill down. If you can give me a little bit more detail about what you've got in mind, that would be great. Anne Marie asks, might you be doing a special co-working session for crowdfunding? I'm really glad you asked, because yes, we are. We wanted to kind of work on the two, people that we spotlighted, both Xander and Stephen. Since we already know that they've got one coming up, we thought, why not do that in a fairly public way so that we can actually, assemble some of the components, if you will. Let's look at their social capital, let's look at, the rewards levels, and make that open to people so that it can kind of be open, for commenting and participation. So that was the idea. Xander says, what does a crowdsourcing campaign social media calendar look like? How often do you post? How many different posts and images would one need? Oh, that is a big question. I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all, frankly. But I can tell you Facebook in the last 6 months or so has just sent out a general directive that they would like to see people posting less frequently and higher quality posts on their platform, for pages. I think they said, really 2 to 4 times a week, using native links, images, much more engagement kind of strategy. So, Facebook is really discouraging being the platform where you can just kind of hammer it repeatedly and say, hey, we're looking for contributors, we're looking for this or that or the other thing. So a Facebook page, they're making it harder and harder to get through to your fans. I think, a current algorithm maybe allows, I'm not sure if I can back this up completely, but I've heard 8% of your fans to see your post. So, if you're already starting with not all that many fans, you can't rely on the Facebook page to get the job done. I think you have to have an integrated, media plan that probably includes, press releases. It would include, social media for sure. Also email, but kicking it off with an event like you are, Xander, I think is a great idea. What I would look to do would be to actually kind of crowdsource people at that event to deputize them and help them help you spread the message. So if you can have some tweets already crafted, or you have a hashtag or something where you can, ask people to get involved in that way, spreading their social capital, then it's not going to be you as a broadcaster just asking for money, So that's probably, again, something that we would drill down and do, in a work session, and we could possibly even get into that today. Let's see.
Can I chime in a little bit about the Facebook?
Yes, please do. Please do.
I think I haven't read that Facebook directive, but the point about quality is really important, because it's not just that I think only 8% automatically sees your posts organically, but if you have content that people are interested in and they're sharing it and they're commenting, that reach becomes magnified. So there is, it's not a science, it's more of an art. But if your posts are engaging people, then you will get that reach that you want on Facebook. It's not just about frequency. It's definitely about content.
That is a really, really great point. And I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit for those of you that might not, be as familiar with Facebook pages or that kind of thing. I do go back and forth between my personal and page too. So if you can do that with integrity, tell people about the projects that you're working on and that you're excited about as your work or your, nonprofit that you're doing work for is part of you. You just need to handle that kind of carefully, right? But if you go to the Insights tab on your Facebook page, what I really try to do periodically, and what I show clients how to do, is just look at what are the most engaging posts that you've got. Try to do more of those things where you're organically, getting the further reach and engagement. So, try to do more of those types of posts and less of the ones that are not getting, any. Okay, so I just did a really kind of simple one yesterday, crowdfunding with Heart webinars tomorrow. It's free. It reached 5 people. There was 0 engagement. That's kind of a dud. It's almost like not worth doing it. Okay, but one that got slightly better, and probably would have, been better if I actually, planned it out and engaged with Melissa, to be strategic about her involvement. We solidified yesterday that she would be joining us on the webinar, and so I actually tagged her Facebook page in that post. It did like slightly better, not a whole lot better. But whenever, again, you can create a buzz along with a team of people, it's just so much easier to get the message out. When it's all you trying to hit up your same people all the time, that is kind of wears your audience out, frankly, and it doesn't help you crowdsource that work. But great point, Melissa. Let me see, we do have a few other questions coming up here. Elaine asks, I am trying to build up with others who I can assist in some upcoming local ventures in Northwest Indiana. I am responding as, let's see, an unofficial go-to girl to contribute to their future business launch. Unfortunately, the entrepreneurs I'm meeting with are not always able to show up for this type of webinar, so I may introduce these helpful resources, third-party referral. Oh, thank you. That's great. And yes, and we'll be happy to, give you the video to share with them, and certainly referrals are very, very welcome. Okay, and Xander said he thought that the organic reach was 1 to 2% for pages. Not sure what it is for personal. Yeah, I don't know, that they're really telling us. I can tell you they made it free for everybody for a very long time. And hey, it's free, right? But they now want money. And that's not unreasonable for them to do. So that's what Boost Post does. And when you, have a really successful post, Facebook will frequently ask you, hey, this post did 200% better than your average post. Would you like to boost this post now and, put a little money toward it? You can kind of hype it up to reach some different demographics or a lot of different choices. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, let me see what other questions we have. And Joy, I hope I didn't lose you. I just want to know a little bit more about what you mean for developing a citizen science project. I don't see why we couldn't, but I'd love to just hear what you're thinking of, and maybe we could kind of, go through that a little bit. I would say if it's environmental at all, you might try the project platform that we mentioned before, which was WeTheTrees.com or .org. I'm not quite sure if it's a .org or a .com, but it was really, really helpful for getting the permaculture solutions to climate change thing done. Yeah, I didn't mean that we would necessarily go through an exhaustive list of every single crowdfunding platform that's out there, but a quick Google search, of top crowdfunding campaigns or platforms would definitely help you to identify which ones might be appropriate for you. And Joy said you'll call me about it. You know what? I'm just going to put this out there. You can call me about it if you want to hire me as a consultant, but if you want to kind of talk about it in a group and do it very affordably, crowdfunding is really the place where I direct people to do that. Okay, so it's just hard for me to really volunteer my services for every great cause that's out there, but it's totally something that we can do within CoThrive. What we do again within CoThrive is beyond these webinars, we actually have 6 hours available for members where we get to be interactive and we work on projects, or I just answer your questions, any questions. It doesn't have to be just even about crowdfunding. So to that, Anne-Marie has a question that's not related to crowdfunding, and that is just fine because she's one of our original members and delighted to have her here. So her question is, one of her Mighty Mirth Facebook posts was shared by somebody she doesn't know. Should she message and thank him somehow? I just want to put her page up there because I think it really is very delightful. I think that's a very nice idea. It's not required, but certainly if you're trying to, get engagement, that's the goal, then, good idea. Whatever you can do to kind of facilitate further conversation, absolutely, absolutely. So I just think this is a really cool site that Anne-Marie has. You can find her at facebook.com/Mighty Mirth. But she's, I always call you a spiritual cartoonist. I know you've got a different name that you would prefer. But he's almost like a little superpower character. He's got his little cape, and he just has all these, kind of cool, earth-friendly, and just affirming messages. So I think that's great. And you know what? That's a really good sign when people that you don't know are liking and sharing your stuff. So you can respond, as your page. Really, that's just great. Absolutely. You like spiritual cartoonists? Good. That's what I keep calling you. So thank you. I'm glad you don't mind that. But yeah, I mean, we really have some super creative people. And again, in my perfect vision, we would, really have some way, maybe where I'm just going to give you a little peek at something I think would be cool to offer down the way. Is I had suggested this to Xander possibly. He's got all these artists that are in the Indy Media Co-op. Anne-Marie has all these, really cool images that she's designed. There are sites like Society 6 and Cafe Press that we're going to be looking at probably in some future, future webinar, but where artists can upload their original artwork and they don't even have to part with it like they would on Etsy, and you can have that thing printed on like on a coffee cup, on, greeting cards, throw pillows, wall tapestries, even duvet covers, all kinds of things. I know, Melissa, you're on this, right? Okay, she muted herself, but yeah, she was one of the first people to actually show me Society 6. But what I thought is, if you had kind of a bigger campaign or a bigger thing that you wanted to do, you could even make some of your giveaways, art-related if you happen to be an artist and you have these things at your disposal.
Just be careful about that, because I know Kickstarter has some very specific rules about who can manufacture the giveaways and that kind of thing.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so just make sure you look at the fine print. And Society 6 takes a pretty large cut. So that may not be the most practical avenue for having things produced for something like that, but yeah, art giveaways are great if they're tied into what you're doing.
If they're tied in, yeah. Like for Stephen, one thing that we had looked at was, I had introduced him to another artist within CoThrive that probably is going to be designing the cover for his book, and I really see his message is really being kind of meme-worthy. He's got a lot of just awesome quotes that I think, you know, I hate to use the word go viral because it's so overdone, but a lot of his quotes I think would stand alone, like on a t-shirt, on a poster, you know, on a card, something like that. So for him to collaborate maybe with an artist and then share, you know, share in some of the win if they were to co-promote. Again, you know, it's a laboratory. I've been asking for the spreadsheet to kind of see, you know, what's the idea. I stir the pot, I bring the tools, I bring some of the, you know, ideas, but it all comes down to you have to build the spreadsheet. You have to see what the fees are to figure out if it's feasible. So I think you've absolutely hit it on the nail on the head again, Melissa. Okay, so let's see. Anne-Marie asks, back to the person who shared, should I post on his timeline or private message? Whenever you're thanking somebody, I mean, this is just a general rule, when it's a good news or a thank you, I would always do that in the most public way possible, because why not? You know, it just shows that you're not asleep at the wheel. It shows that you're an active brand manager and that you respond to people who comment or share. So if you're trying to encourage more of that behavior, I would just, you know, acknowledge it in a public way so that people see that's part of your brand, as being interactive, you know, being responsive, being engaging. So I don't know. Anybody else have something different on that? Kind of going back to Xander's question about, you know, what does a social media schedule look like? Facebook, I already mentioned, you know, they're looking for fewer posts and higher quality. Twitter, I think you can get away with a whole lot more, frankly, on Twitter. And by using appropriate hashtags and really thinking about who it is that would perhaps be interested in a particular reward or benefit. You know, Erik mentioned something like sailing knots, and I don't even know the whole story behind that. He's got a lot of ideas. But, you know, if you were doing something that was sailing specific, then you could do a little research, find out, you know, what conversations are going on around that, and then try to figure out how to make that specific tweet in that specific mini campaign within your overarching campaign attractive, you know, to that potential target audience for that particular reward. So I think, you know, there's a lot of smart stuff that you can do by just, you know, thinking it through and figuring out who it is you're trying to reach, what would be attractive to them. Let me go over to Crowdster too and just show you. I did not sign up for any account. I don't have a crowdfunding campaign going right now, but this is kind of what it looks like even when you log into the free campaign. They're charting, you know, all these different campaigns that they're analyzing. They have a database of over 500,000 crowdfunding supporters, and, you know, like what Melissa said, is she realized that some of her supporters were just, you know, buying every single card deck that had an art, you know, an art theme, and so that was a specific type of buyer, and she knew that was an attractive product. So which came first, Melissa, the chicken or the egg? Did you kind of design the card deck because you saw that there was a market, or did you kind of have the idea already to do it that way?
I kind of had the idea already to do it that way. I just in my personal work, playing card imagery is kind of just something I'm researching right now and something I'm kind of fascinated with, looking at historical decks and art decks and all of that. So it's just starting to emerge in the imagery I was making, and so then people started saying, hey, when is this going to be a real deck? So that's how it happened. Okay.
Well, I'm going to just do a quick poll. I probably should have done this before. I'm just curious, for the people who are on, I'm going to go ahead and just launch real quick. Tell me if, you know, doing a crowdfunding campaign is something that you're interested in. I mean, I'm thinking that possibly that's why you showed up here today, but maybe you just wanted to know, you know, what it was about. Go ahead and I'll leave it open just another. Okay. Okay, just another couple seconds. Okay, that should be enough time. All right, let's see. Let me close that poll. All right, so 33% extremely interested, 50% very interested and 17% somewhat interested. That's not showing up on your screen, I realize. Here, let me share. Okay, there we go. So, definitely you guys have this in mind. Do you have something right now that you'd like to talk about? Like Anne-Marie, do you have one in mind? Let me just look at who's on the call, and I'll kind of, I'm happy to take anybody off of mute. Jennifer Shellhart we've got. Welcome. I don't know if this is for your photography or if it's for green research. I'd be really interested to know. Lisa Harris, always a big CoThrive supporter. Lee Watson, so great to see you here. Sue Anderson, would love to hear from you. I know Sue has just opened a co-working space in Hammond, Indiana. Agnes is here from Chicago. Great to have you, Agnes. Angelina Jansen is here as well. Anne-Marie Marti I've mentioned. Annie Lane Willis I've mentioned. Kenny Washington, would love to hear what you're up to. I don't know what project you're working on. Larry Allen, really glad to have you here too. So again, feel free to, you can raise your hand if you see the little space on there where you raise your hand, or you can type a question into the question box, and I'll be happy to unmute you or just read the question that you share. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep going and telling you what I know. Okay, Anne-Marie says she has a new product that she's wondering if it would be a good crowdfunding product. Not expensive to make, but thought crowdfunding might be a way to find folks who like your work. Anne-Marie, would you be willing for me to, or would you be comfortable with me taking you off mute? Because I'd love to have you just be able to talk about it. I don't want to put you on the spot. Great, okay. Hey there. Is my microphone good for you? Hi there. Does this sound work for you? I hear you. It sounds good to me. Cool. Yes. Yeah. So tell us about what your project, what kind of project are you thinking of?
I don't know if you've seen this, but it's 6 or 7 of my cartoons on a prayer flag format.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And kind of tells a little story.
Okay. I think that I think one is on display at Loaf, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I saw it there when I was there for the food swap. Very cool.
That's a large version. That was an early version of it. That's a large version, and then I'm making a small one where the cards are 3 by 3 inches.
Okay. And so, would it be like one 6 flag series that everybody would get, or would tell me a little bit about what you're thinking so far, or is it kind of customizable?
It is customizable, and there's but I wasn't thinking of actually customizing as much as I was thinking there's a variety of different situations that I could put together these little prayer flags for. So you could give it or send it as a it could be a congratulations card, or it could be hang in there card, or there's a lot of different themes I could explore with it, with the different cartoons.
As long as we've got Melissa here and you, I hope people on the call don't mind if we go a little bit heavy into the art thing. But Anne-Marie, I'm not sure if you were on when Melissa was talking about her campaign and how she was doing like an image a day during a 100-day Instagram challenge. But Melissa, you do share quite frequently what you're working on as you're doing it, and you, I think, credited that to building awareness about your work and kind of having people participate. Is that accurate?
It's interesting though, because I think my Instagram audience is completely different than my Facebook audience.
Okay.
But what it did was allow me to see the response to those images. Just I had a lot more discussion and a lot more likes and responses to that body of work, even though it was all, some of it was just quick sketches and in progress. I think part of it was just the consistency of doing it daily, but also just having, realizing that there was more buzz around this body of work than maybe some of the other things I've been posting.
And I guess part of my question centers around, just images and being an artist online. When you share your artwork out there, do you ever are you ever fearful, like, hey, somebody could just download this or take it, or, you know, why are they going to buy it from me? You know, I think that maybe is a concern sometimes for artists. Like, if I just put it out there, what's to stop people from just, you know, downloading it?
And that's always a risk, but that's part of why I'm very free with sharing in progress images, because, you know, if I'm taking like an angled shot of a pencil sketch, that's not something someone can download and use in any way, form. When I post finished work, I try to make sure I've got my information embedded in the image, which is easy to do in Photoshop. I also, for some of my finished images, I do kind of police them online. I do reverse image searches through Google on a weekly basis to see if things are showing up places they shouldn't be. You know, it goes with the territory, though. If you put it out there, someone can take it. I don't care if you watermark it. I don't care if it's a risk, and you have to find a way if you're willing to take that risk.
But I do feel like, you know, something that is very structured, like 100 days, it kind of trains people that this is not going to be a one-off post from this artist. Like, I want to tune in. It's almost like reality TV in a way. Like, I want to see if she kept up her 100-day challenge. Like, what is she going to create today? You're kind of telling people in advance what you're going to be creating or the type of thing that you're going to be creating. So, Anne-Marie, how this, I think, would relate to you is, instead of, you know, waiting to do the crowdfunding campaign, you know, once you've got all the prayer flags together and you've got all the images together, like, if, you know, if you said, I'm creating a, you know, prayer flag that maybe is for get well soon, you know, theme, that you could maybe put images out there, like Melissa did, that, hey, it's a work in progress, you know, and do an angled shot or do something that's watermarked or some other way. Or, you know, another thing to kind of get the engagement going is to say, I've got these two choices, you know, that I'm looking for that should communicate peace to somebody who's in a hospital bed or whatever. Like, which one do you like? I'm going to let the audience vote and decide which one belongs on this prayer flag. You know, trying to kind of get people engaged or to find out what they like. Anne-Marie had a super engaging strategy session one time, actually, I think with my parents, right?
Yes.
Where you were putting your in-progress work up on the screen, and she had my mom sort of making suggestions on the fly. It got a little crazy, but I mean, she was really into your work, though. By the time, you know, you guys were kind of done, she felt like she was a part of your brand. And, you know, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to retire after my mom's t-shirt purchase. You know, she like really, really, really wanted to buy something of yours because she felt invested in it. And, you know, I know Melissa, I like her work, and when she does something, I think she puts a price point out there and just makes it easy for me to be a part of it. So even though she hit her Kickstarter thing, I was like, oh, I want a deck, you know. So she didn't need my donation, or not donation, but my purchase to make her goal. But I'm like, I just wanted the deck, and it was affordable, it was easy to do, and so we, you know, we could do that. So I want to welcome. We're actually getting a few people still joining us, and we're finished with the formal part of the webinar, but we're just talking webinar, we're talking strategy, we're talking, you know, really nuts and bolts. So great questions. And Anne-Marie says, thank you, Melissa, for the tip about the reverse image search. So that's all good stuff. Yeah. So anybody else? Everybody who indicated on the poll said that they were at least somewhat interested, and most of you very or extremely interested in doing a crowdfunding project. So tell me, if you can, any details about your crowdfunding project, and we can at least, you know, maybe start some very rudimentary conversations on it. And I would love for you to, you know, join CoThrive, and we can set up some specific work sessions where we, you know, detail an agenda. We get people to submit their ideas that they want to work on. And again, the way that CoThrive is different is, instead of hiring me as a consultant where you're one person and you're picking up the consulting fee, we've got lots of members who, you know, I'm just going to share the math with you. If somebody hires me as a consultant and pays me one-on-one, they pay me, you know, $100 or an hour or more. But for CoThrive members, it's $30 for a whole month, and I make myself available for 6 hours a week. So the idea is not that you're going to, you know, get me all necessarily working on your one idea, but that you can come and either be a fly on the wall or submit your idea that you'd like to talk about, and we make it public so that other people can learn, from whatever it is that you're learning. Try to kind of leverage, and again, with the idea of the companion planting is let's look for ways where maybe there's some overlap, or we can draw on some good ideas that Melissa had or that Stephen had or that Erik had. And I'm not going to know everything. Quite frankly, the other members are just as valuable to members as I am. I just, I give you what I know. I'm here every session. But we've got a lot of super talented and creative people. Okay, so Lee said he's not ready yet, but he likes the idea. Awesome. Anybody else? Sue Anderson, I'd love to hear from you and what you're thinking of. And if anybody would like to talk, just let me know and I'll be happy to unmute you. Lee says, unless you can crowdfund a bigger sailboat for team building and life success courses. Well, that's an interesting thing. Hey, I don't know if you got the message that I sent you, Lee, but I sent you something about your sailboat, so we can talk about that outside of this. But, well, I'll just say it. For the last few years, Lee, and I'm going to put his page up on screen, he's got a page called Life Success, and he does all kinds of, consulting with people, kind of helping them build the life that they want. Let's see, adventure awaits. Let's see what he's got under the About section. But what he does, he does own a sailboat, and he really likes to kind of make available the excess capacity. He's going out on the boat anyway, and so he would like for other people to be able to join him. And what I said was, hey, if you'd like to make that available to CoThrive members, then that would be a member benefit. You'd be helping make the community more valuable. While I'm not technically crowdfunding, I'm asking him to add value to my campaign. That was kind of the idea of it. So I think you could absolutely bundle, a sailboat ride or all kinds of different things as a reward for giving at a certain level. Like, let's say you're trying to crowdfund a big conference, for instance. You could make, a private sailing trip for up to however many people one of your rewards levels, and this is something that you're pretty willing to do anyway. But you're just giving that to somebody where they get to invite the other guest and that kind of deal. Okay. So, all right, good. So Lee said that's a cool idea. He'd like to look at that further. Awesome. Probably before it gets too cold. And Lisa Harris says that she would most likely look at crowdfunding for a non-tangible thing, like funding some startup aspect of her business, perhaps research for her interest area. Okay. And so Lisa has started Lisa Harris Consulting. I don't think your website is quite up yet. If I'm wrong, let me know and I'll go to it. But she does writing workshops, and then she also does writing, like grant writing, business writing, other kinds of writing for nonprofits, especially those that are in the Great Lakes area. So I kind of keep thinking, okay, I know she likes sailing, Lee. I'm thinking like you and Lisa, you could be a great combination. She's a writer. She wants to do things with, water, especially Great Lakes. Your boat is on Lake Michigan. To me, there's some kernel of an idea there. The cool thing is, you can really get very, very creative with some of your rewards packages. Obviously, you kind of want to be on point and create things that are relatively easy to do. But if you can partner with people who win when you win, that's kind of the CoThrive way, right? So Angelina has a question. She says, I would love to look into crowdfunding for her conference. Oh, yes. Okay. Need ideas on how to do this. Okay. Can you shoot me a link, Angelina, for the link to your conference? I know we've talked about it before, but I can't recall off the top of my head how to get there. I just need to jog my memory a tiny bit on what that is. And, oh, hey, very cool. Lee says that he plans to move Life Success into Sue Anderson's incubator, and Sue Anderson's on the call as well, so that's great to hear. Hey, maybe you guys could be an outpost for CoThrive in the Hammond area. Good to know that wonderful things are going on there, too. That's pretty cool. who else? Anybody else have crowdfunding question? Melissa, I really appreciate your specific knowledge on artist, and I know Deb Landry particularly said that she really looked up to you and saw you as somebody who had a good head for business and was just very practical about getting these things done. It's obvious that you're working with a spreadsheet. It's not pie in the sky. It's very well thought out. So are there any tips that you could give just from a budgeting standpoint, or how you kind of reverse engineered your budget and your levels?
Well, the first thing I do is look at all my costs. And so, knowing how much it's going to cost me to produce these things, knowing how it's going to scale, if, like I knew I wanted to start out with a goal of getting 100 decks printed, then I have to go, okay, what happens if I sell 150? How does that make my numbers look? And then the other rewards, because I have art prints and things, you have to figure out what your shipping is going to cost, how much you're going to pay for packing materials. So you really do need to look at it from a budget standpoint, and that gives you a realistic number, and then you can start structuring the rewards for backers and what those price points need to be to make the whole thing work. And I think in some cases the numbers aren't going to match up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the pieces of advice I have seen for your reward levels, make sure you have quite a range. I think the average for successfully backed Kickstarter projects is 9 different reward levels. You can have some really high for if you've got a couple angels out there that want to throw money at you. And then you can even have some really low, because if you look at mine, I've even got a $10 level where you don't get a deck of cards, but you do get something. So it's, yeah, and if you're not good with numbers, find somebody who can help you. Maybe you've got a partner or a friend or a spouse or something who is good at structuring that stuff.
Yeah, and again, that's something that I'd be totally willing to, work out with you during CoThrive session. So, I can show you some free tools, like Google Drive is a place I go to quite frequently to just create a spreadsheet. It's free. You don't even have to have Microsoft Office. You can just go there, create a Google Sheet in the cloud, and that makes it really nice and easy to share, if you're collaborating on a project. I'm doing that with Stephen right now. So we've been kind of putting levels together and ideas. We actually use that for critiquing his draft as well. So there's just a whole lot of good stuff there. Again, I like what I see with this Crowdster. I don't have a professional account because I don't have a crowdfunding campaign that I need to look at. But I'll tell you what I will do. For somebody that does a paid membership to CoThrive, I would donate your first month fee to helping you get access to one of these services through Crowdster, because I'd like to preview it with somebody, but have a point. I don't want to buy it just to buy it. So what I'm saying is I would just take the flow through and put it toward Crowdster for you if you're willing to kind of make that exercise a publicly viewable session like we're doing right now. I can only go so far with what we've got right now. But ideally, I'd like somebody who needs the whole ball of wax, for whatever, I think it's $97 for the entire thing. But it has something where it's got, campaign analytics. I really want to know if it works. I haven't been able to find anything online that says it doesn't work.
I'd be curious about this too, because I've gotten about 10 emails from these kinds of outfits since I launched my last project. And, it's funny to me, some of the emails I got, it was clear they didn't really look at my project or because for such a modest goal as I have, it would make no sense for me to pay somebody. But I think for some of the bigger ones, but I would say do your homework, because I'm guessing not all of these outfits are as reputable as others. So, but you can actually use your Google, you can hook up your Google Analytics to Kickstarter. So you will get that information, find out where, how traffic's going back and forth between your other things that you're tracking in Google Analytics and your Kickstarter campaign.
Right. So that's all kind of like inward facing, but what they have, and again, I don't have personal experience with it. My impression so far has been positive, But for instance, you know, going to Social Gauge, like they've got something that I think would be a really excellent first start is just to select your category. Again, I can't do it because I don't have the paid, but you select your category, you select your funding goal, and then you look at, you know, what's the reach that I have for Twitter, what's the reach that I have for Facebook, and, you know, a little bit more about what you know about your audience, da-da-da-da-da. Is your reach typically going to be reasonable for what you've got? If you don't have that, that would probably be good to know up front, and then you've got to look at some other ways to supplement how you're going to get there. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world if you personally don't have the Twitter or Facebook followers, but if you don't, you might need to tap into like this database of crowdfunding supporters. Melissa's example, for instance, she found that, you know, a lot of the people who were buying her deck weren't people that she knew, but they were people who bought art-related decks. So if you can find a lookalike buyer and somehow, you know, even shape your campaign like ones that you can tell that they're already funding, you know, that's kind of a way to reverse engineer it, and that's a, you know, smart idea. So that's what Crowd Builder is about, basically, is looking at people who are already supporting networks, whether you know them or not, or excuse me, funding crowdfunding projects, whether you know them or not, and tapping into that. I'm sorry, Melissa, did you say something? Somebody said something. Sorry if I overtalked. Okay, well, let me know if you did. Okay, Angelina has found her event thing, so we're going to put that up in just a minute. And then Elaine says that she has an idea she shared in the small meetup group for future projects to incorporate a community outreach program of minds, body wellness, and environmentally safe laundry service, building being ADA accessible. Okay. Never heard of ideas being incorporated. Okay, so she's got a particular interest or focus in, you know, the disabled people to help them become more employable. Okay. Okay, so she said might need some more mind mapping or venues to kind of seek out how to get that done. Great. Well, you know what? Honestly, you know, I have some very important people in my own life that are in wheelchairs and have brain injuries, and so, you know, that was actually one of the things that was kind of behind CoThrive too, was helping people get marketable skills. So we can talk about that outside of this a little bit. Anyhow, let's take a look at what Angelina's got. She's got a pretty big conference. Shoot, let me just get that. Oh, dear, I can't seem to copy and paste it. All right, Eventbrite. Let me see if I can just get their second annual Celebrating Physiological Birth Conference. I'm going to try a crazy Google search. Sorry, this is a little messier. It seems insane not to be able to just click on it, but it's not letting me do it. I think this is it. Okay, so you're selling tickets to this. I mean, if you're selling tickets, I'm just trying to kind of figure out the hybrid for crowdfunding. Angelina, do you mind if I unmute you? I'd kind of like to just get your ideas because you're probably further along the thought process. Okay, I just unmuted you, Angelina. Can you say anything more about that?
I'm sorry, what did you want to know?
Well, I'm trying to get my head around, you know, what you'd want to do for your conference. I've got your conference up on screen.
Sure.
And I mean, since you're already selling tickets, in a way, I mean, you know, selling tickets is you're asking people to each pay for a ticket to produce a big event, which in a way is a little bit like crowdfunding. You know, it's not quite, I'm just trying to kind of figure out, did you have any ideas just off the top of your head?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'm really completely blank when it comes to this stuff.
Well, I mean, it's a live event where people are buying tickets. So I'm not going to say there isn't a component that could work this way. I mean, maybe maybe it could be, you know, a giveaway, or, you know, Melissa's already given me the warning that Society 6, the numbers might not quite work out. But if you had something that would be like, I don't know, I'm just talking off the top of my head here, like Support Life, you know, Hug a Doula or something like that, and it was like a T-shirt or a, you know, mug or whatever, and it was like, you know, you did a campaign that said the purchase of this, whatever it is, helps to fund, you know, this speaker that you're having that you're bringing in to this conference. You know, if you wanted to maybe crowdfund like a specific speaker within the conference that's currently not supported by ticket sales, or would be an add-on, or you know, something like to just fund the whole conference, I think you kind of have to have that be viable already, since you've got tickets up and for sale, right?
Yeah.
Usually crowdfunding is like, hey, we need to raise a certain amount of money in order to, you know, make this thing happen. And you're obviously, you know, the way it's presented is you're going to make it happen. So you don't want to undermine how viable the conference looks by kind of layering on a crowdfunding campaign to say like, hey, you know, we need your support, or this isn't going to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
But you know, you could either, or you know, you've mentioned before when we've talked that you make a certain amount of home births available to people who couldn't otherwise afford your fee, but it's a limited number. So
Right.
maybe, you know, maybe it would be kind of like a fundraising thing to give more, you know, free support to families in need. You know, if you crowdfunded something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
To me, that would kind of be good PR for you, at the same time that you'd be funding, you know, good work in the world that you'd like to do, but you just simply can't, you know, give it away to everybody.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one quick idea. But you're also in an association too, right, of doulas?
Actually, I'm a board member of the Indiana Midwifery Association.
Okay. Okay. So maybe if they had some kind of, you know, like statewide branding campaign that helped about, you know, awareness of births with a doula, you know, I'd say making it be part of an organizational type thing, you know, that again funded maybe a speaker, or yeah, I'm trying to think what else would be a good example. Those are the two things that come to mind. Would be, you know, something that would benefit all through education, you know, being able to hire a particularly good speaker to come to a conference, or, you know, just making more services available to in-need families. And can you think of any other ideas? Or anybody on the call, can you think of ideas? We're a creative bunch.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I will say normally with the CoThrive work sessions, we've got everybody off mute, so it's a little weird for me to hear my own voice so much, but I hope that helped.
Yeah, it gave me some really great ideas. I think I need to go and create something with them.
Yeah, well, good. I hope that at least gets the, you know, the juices flowing, and this won't be the last time, you know, we can talk about it. And then Elaine has asked to be unmuted. She's got something that she thinks will help me understand her comment a little bit better. So let me go to her. Hi, Elaine. You've got the mic.
Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Very excited, even though I had a scheduling snag, so I joined later. My idea stemmed from the co-working space meetup group, and we use the Lean Startup Guidebook.
Sure.
And I have never heard of some of this. Where my idea stemmed from was for a need to have a community outreach and have it accessible for people who are struggling, who might want, you know, coming from a homeless initiative mission, really, that I've personally had friends and family go through. So I know that as myself, being a person who's wanting to be from disabled to entrepreneurial, that's where I would like to be someone who's advocating on that level, to do something that allows you to have a way to volunteer and give back in exchange for finding mind, body, and wellness support during the time that you can use laundry services and have an environmental kind of a kickback, something that is safe for everybody to use, non-toxic, and have several avenues of ideas here that was like, honestly, where how can I market and reach out? I don't think that I've seen this as a collaborative project goal anywhere yet. I've seen it done separately where you might have a separate community outreach for mind and body programs, but not within the confines of actually having a facility that is just for the specific ADA community and also those that are in need, low to middle income families.
Well,
and it's an odd angle to go through, but I know that it's become something that makes people feel like they can give back and that they can support their families and would give them a great sense of pride, and that there could be any level of state, federal, private, or sponsorships. I think there's a lot of different ways that could gain source for funding. So that's just a wide approach, and I'm trying to figure out how to streamline something without giving up, like, and maybe just making a mini micro project first to see how I can produce all these analytics and things that I'm learning that really is something that you need to show in order to gain funding.
Okay, well, yeah, I think you're probably, you know, and I'm not an expert here, but I think you're probably a few stages away from crowdfunding. It seems like you've kind of got to lay down, like you said, the idea mapping. And, you know, this is another thing that we do quite frequently in CoThrive is I call it who do you need to meet? And when you've just got a little bit of an idea and you're not sure yet who's doing what, I find that it's very helpful to find lookalike models, you know, because I don't know that anybody's doing exactly what you're doing right now. But just I'll give you a few things that I think are elements of what you're talking about that I personally am interested in as well. And do with these what you will. But I know Lisa Harris, who's on the call, she uses Evernote, and I really like Evernote too. If you're not familiar with it, it's a free, you know, online archiving tool basically that lets you just kind of save ideas that you find around the web. So like one idea that you talked about to me sounds like it could be called time banking. You know, and actually Xander, who was one of our presenters, Xander, who's one of our presenters, you know, he's in Indianapolis, and I just kind of noticed on his Facebook that he went to this event, or he's going to this event today. Erik, who was on the call, he was also a presenter. He's very involved in time banking where he lives in Ithaca, New York, and he also himself was homeless for 50 days, so he might be a great collaborator, you know, and he's doing a crowdfunding campaign. So I can think of people already right within the community that would know some of that part. For the who's working with people with disabilities, I am really interested in that too. I mean, I kind of put that right on the front page of CoThrive when it was a stream of consciousness, like, hey, here's who I really want to attract, and here's who, you know, I say that CoThrive is loosely modeled on permaculture principles, and permaculture isn't just for agriculture. They really encourage people to examine the edges. They examine the edges, and I'm like, okay, who's on the edges of society? You know, who has excess capacity that maybe is, like here, jobs, skills, and employment opportunities for unemployed or underemployed and simply curious people who want to know this stuff, you know, make a difference and learn new technology. But when I wrote that, I was kind of thinking of, you know, possibly recently retired people that are unemployed, you know, not by their decision, or people, you know, with disabilities. You know, there's a lot that they they can do, you know, if they want to. So I would kind of look into groups like that. I don't know if you know Julie Storbeck. Do you know Julie?
I don't believe so. I'm gradually branching out and meeting a lot of what I like to consider earthly-minded people and natural, inspirational, and creative sources.
Yeah. Well, and so, you know, I mean, what I'm probably going to give you are people that are interested in one or more aspects of what you're looking for, but maybe there's not one person who's the whole, you know, whole package. But I think by exploring those different branches of what you're doing, you might kind of get closer. All right, for some reason my computer's freezing up a little, and it's not letting me just do a simple Facebook search. But Julie Storbeck, I know, hosts some kind of a meetup for people that have disabilities, you know, whether they're visible or invisible, and, you know, she also comes to green drinks too, so she would probably hit on a couple of those cylinders. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
maybe I have met her then.
And then I'm thinking of Opportunity Enterprises as well. Have you looked into that at all?
I worked with housing opportunities in the past as a client, and I saw a lot of potential in a different part of their mission that maybe they didn't see for your visionary people in this world.
Okay. Well,
because there's I haven't particularly gone outreached and things like that. I'm doing it more quietly because I've had a lot of personal life changes going on. So.
Well, you know, this is what I advise any client when we begin working together one-on-one, is to kind of do a SWOT analysis, and that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So, you know, what makes you the project manager? And, you know, sometimes I just want things to happen in the world, and I know I'm probably not the project manager, but I just kind of lobby for them to happen. And I might just plant a bug in somebody's ear.
Plant a seed.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen, you know, but like for instance, I really want there to be a food forest in Valparaiso, or at least in Porter County. I don't know the first thing, or maybe I know the first thing, but I don't know everything that I would need to know about what that would take. However, I learned about a grant that I think would actually fund that. You know, I gave some careful consideration to where I thought it would actually fit pretty well, and then I found out the name of the person who writes those grants, and I'm just going to put up on screen like what I did. I'm not saying that this is happening, but you know, it's like I just took a shot and said, I'll show you exactly, where is it?
What was the T in your SWOT?
Oh, threat.
Threat. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know,
couldn't type it fast enough.
Yeah, this is more like if you're a business, you know, like what could wipe out your idea or what could be threatening. But yeah, so I found that like Raymond Joseph was the guy who wrote grants, and I just wrote him, you know, we were already connected on LinkedIn, so he kind of knows me a little bit, and I just put, I've been thinking it would be really cool for Porter County to have a food forest. Do you know what those are? I think it might be a great fit for a place like Sunset Hill under the Lake Michigan Coastal Program grant program. A little redundant, should have read that out loud. What do you think? I'd be happy to assist in whatever way would make sense if you're interested. You know, here's my number, here's my email. Like, I haven't heard from him, but this is just, you know, within the last week or two. But, you know, so I'm not just saying, hey, here's an idea, why don't you do it all? But I've gathered some pieces together, and, you know, here it is. I don't need to be in charge. So I think you need to figure out, too, are you looking for, you know, to make this your own project, or do you just want to see this happen in the world? What are you, you know, willing and able to do? I would kind of look at joining groups, like the group that Julie has. She'd probably be a good, you know, gatekeeper of information about projects that are currently going on, or, you know, be able to kind of tune you in. So yeah, I mean, again, during CoThrive, we look at strategy, just blanket strategy. Hey, here are some, you know, general generic pieces that would make sense. But then I'm also not afraid to like just use the tools and connect to real people if I happen to know who they are, or I can find who they are. But we are almost at the end of our second hour.
Interested in all levels.
Yeah, well, I really hope you'll think about joining up with us, because I think everybody on this call was called here for a reason, and I just appreciate every one of you. I just have found that the people who are attracted to these kind of workshops are just very special people who want to make really cool things happen in the world, and I'd like to help, you know. So again, I do have a financial model just to kind of make this a somewhat viable business venture for me. But if you're on the call and that's not a possibility for you, I am very willing to talk about what gifts you'd like to offer the community and work out some kind of barter, because we really need a lot of hands.
Bartering's awesome.
To make it, yeah. It's kind of like time banking. Erik has volunteered to do some work on time banking to help me figure out how we would map that for our community. So anyway, we have gotten quite a ways from crowdfunding, and quite frankly, that's totally fine. We usually start in one place and then we go where we go. But thanks for everybody who contributed. Thanks to everybody who stayed the whole time, and for those of you who asked questions, I really appreciate your participation and hope to see you back around for another webinar or in the CoThrive community. And that's all the time we've got for today. Thanks so much.